What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got a new set of news for you. It's been a minute, but thank you so much. I feel like I've been dying. I've been waiting for news. I got so used to just getting news at least like every week, but it felt like for like a week straight, and the last piece of news we got was like not even that crazy. It was just like the Lost Art promotion stuff, which is like fine, but like not like new reveals. But this is brand new cards we're getting, and I'm really excited to get into it. So, Meklords, one of the classic 5Ds archetypes, one of the villain archetypes, I believe. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. First off, here we have Meklord Astro Dragon Triskalia. This is a dark level 10 machine. It's a special summon effect monster with 3,000 attack and 0 defense. And it looks pretty cool. It's kind of like a chimera looking like three-headed serpent thing. Looks cool. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card must be first special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 Meklord monsters with different names from your graveyard. And the first effect, once per turn when this card declares an attack, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and equip one monster from your opponent's extra deck to this card. Second effect, this card gains attack equal to the total attack of all monsters equipped to it by its effect. Okay. And then while this card is equipped with a synchro monster, it can attack monsters up to 3 times during the battle phase. So, there's a couple things going on here. There's definitely a more battle phase oriented like boss monster, but I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I mean, so is Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and this card kind of gives me some vibes similar. Definitely not as strong, but what boss monster is as strong as Conductor? So, first effect, to be able to just look at your extra deck and just look at your opponent's extra deck and just take something and equip it to him, it's actually very, very good, especially if your opponent does have certain choke points mid to late game where you realize, ooh, like that could be a play that, like, if I cut that play off, you may not be able to even out this monster. You take a Boral Sword from your opponent, they may not have another link 4 that's like big enough to get over him, especially once he gains the attack of the Boral Sword. And just the second effect, like I just said, gaining the attack of the Boral Sword is huge. This guy is like can easily just become like 6,000. You gotta assume that almost every single extra deck is gonna have a 3,000 monster in it, so he can just immediately become 6,000, which is really good. And if that monster happens to be a synchro, like, I don't know, rip a Boral Savage, rip a Adamancipator Risen Dragite, rip out important like setup monsters that they want out of their deck, as well as gain the 3,000, and you can attack 3 monsters a turn. I think there's I definitely think this card's fine. I don't think it'll be more than a 2 of max, but definitely probably a 1 of. I do think it is a power card, and if you can get those Meklord monsters in grave and get him to your hand, I believe there is some searchability coming up here. This is a pretty cool card. So nice little boss monster there. Next up, we have Meklord Nucleus Infinity Core. This card is probably the best card of the new support by far. Maybe not by far, but it's good. This is a dark level 1 machine effect monster with 0/0 for its stats, and its first and third effects are hard once returns each. First effect of this card is normal or special summon. You can add a Meklord spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Okay. Second effect, this card cannot be destroyed by battle once per turn. That's also not that bad. I mean, like, if you're normal summoning him, he'll be in attack mode, but if you can special summon him in defense mode, it does also help you get a little mini wall up, which is nice for stalling. And the third effect, if this card is destroyed by a card effect not specific to you or your opponent's card effects, you can special summon 1 Meklord Emperor monster from your hand or deck with a different attribute from the monsters you control, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also, for the rest of this turn, only 1 monster you control can declare attacks. Okay, there's a lot going on there. This guy pretty much gives you access to being able to special like your big Meklords straight from the deck, as long as you don't already have a dark monster on the field, because I believe they're dark. But really, he's your Stratos. He searches your in-archetype spell or traps. Always phenomenal to have a Stratos. Incredible with consistency, incredible with baiting negates. Very good. The second effect's kind of like just a mini plus, being able to have that battle protection once per turn. Not the worst. And the third effect is probably like the second most important one, because I do believe there are some effects where you can destroy your own Meklord cards to gain other effects, and then he also gets to special you, potentially like this guy straight out of the deck, and then you try and push for some big damage, stuff like that. Very, very strong there, so I think he's a great card for the deck. Next up we have Meklord Army Arsenal of Obbligato. This is a level 4 light machine effect monster. 1200, 1800 are his stat lines. You can only use the first and second effects of this card's name once per turn. First effect, during your main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, special summon 2 Meklord army monsters from your deck in defense position, except for himself, but you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for machines. And the second effect of this card is sent to the graveyard, period, just anything. You can activate this effect during the end phase and inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each Meklord monster you control. I actually don't think this card is that great. I know, like, his first effect kind of sounds kind of good, but, like, it has to special summon Meklord army cards. This is not a Meklord army card, unless the translations will be different, and it does end up being a Meklord army card. If it can special this out of that, then it's interesting, because this then gets you a search and then can push you further. But as far as I know, the Meklord army cards that already exist in the deck are really old. And they just don't do much. So that's where this card kind of falls flat. Yeah, it's a 2-for-1, or it's a 1-for-2, I guess. But the monsters you're summoning don't do anything. They're stuck in defense position. You lock yourself into machines, and that burn effect is nothing. You're gonna bring your opponent for like 200, like 200, 300 damage. Like, that's like maybe in the perfect time scenario that can matter, but like it probably won't. Yeah, I just think overall this card's like fine. If this card translates to being a Meklord army card, then it's interesting. Or like we get other like stuff that makes Meklord army cards better, then they're interesting. But like I just think he's like just okay. Just okay. Next up we have Meklord Assembly. This is a continuous spell card. You can only activate a card with this card's name once per turn, and the second and third effects are also hard once per turns as well. When this card resolves, add a Meklord monster from your deck to your hand. Seems pretty good. I mean, especially because this card adds you the spells and traps, but not a monster. But this card is a Meklord card, so you can just add this, and then this adds the monster. So essentially, it does add a monster. So that's actually pretty good. The second effect is you can discard one card, then target one monster you control, and destroy that card. Also very good, because we already looked at this guy's effect. If he's destroyed by a card effect, he can special summon a Meklord Emperor straight from the hand or deck with a different attribute for monster you control. So you literally go him, search assembly, assembly search, assembly pop him by discarding a card. Then he gets you whatever other Meklord card you want, Meklord Emperor card, directly from the deck. It could be this guy, it could be one of the other ones. Oh, actually, this one isn't an Emperor. Oh, that's actually interesting. I thought this one was Emperor, but it's not. But we do have actually some pretty good Emperors in the deck as well, which is pretty cool. And the third effect, if a face-up Meklord monster you control is destroyed by battle or effects, you could target one other face-up spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. That's just icing on the cake. I mean, I know it's only face-up spell or traps, but I feel like the rest of what this card does is already so good for the deck that this being, like, this last effect being stuck to only face-up spell and traps, it's kind of just like, oh, the icing on the cake isn't my favorite flavor, but it's still icing on this cake. It's still a bonus. If this third effect wasn't even there, it'd still be a great card. It pops face-up field spells, you know what I mean, like Magical Meltdown, so that you can respond to fusion summons, like, you know what I mean, field spells, other cards that end up face-up, you know what I mean. In the Zodiac matchup, they're around a little bit, popping Barrage if they leave up Tenki, so they don't get that. Like, there's some small things you can pop, or even Floodgates, really, if the situation promotes it. But yeah, I think this card's phenomenal. This card and the little guy are like the two best cards here. Next up, we have Meklord Control, a quick play spell card you can only activate once per turn. This card, first effect says target one Meklord monster you control. That monster's attack becomes equal to the total original attack of all Meklord monsters on the field, but your opponent takes no battle damage from battles involving that monster until the end of the turn. And the second effect, if a Meklord monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Like, this card's so, like, bleh to me. If the monster you buffed could attack, so like you could literally potentially just make something like 10,000 and just go for a one-shot kill, almost like a Utopia double, like bang bang, like one-shot kill, then it'd be interesting because it's searchable and it's a quick play. It could be used in the damage step, like all that stuff. But it's not, and so because it's not, it's just like, it's a card that like might have been interesting like 10 years ago, but like nowadays, it just doesn't matter. Like, it's like, make a monster big. The protection is nice. I like the second effect actually quite a bit, and it just kind of saddens me that like the first effect is so bleh that like this deck almost had an in-archetype way of getting to Balix, and it does, but the card itself isn't good. Like, Balix is already so good that, like, you just want to go through Balix in any play anyway, and so it's automatically just going to be set up. This guy doesn't do that, so not a big fan of, from me for that one. And the last card we have here is Cruel Mercy of the Meklord Astro. This is a normal trap card. Its first and second effects are hard once per turns. First effect, target 3 Meklord monsters in your graveyard, each with a different name as cost. Either add those monsters to your hand or special summon them, ignoring summoning conditions, but you cannot special monsters for the rest of the turn except for machine monsters. And the second effect, if you control a Meklord Astro monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard to destroy one synchro monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage equal to its original attack. Okay, this card's kind of a lot, but it is searchable. So again, if you wanted to set up that guaranteed follow-up play, you could search this off of Affinity Core, and then set this maybe mid to late game once you have 3 different named Meklord cards engraved. Revive them all, ignoring summoning conditions, which means you could just be potentially just throwing the boss monsters back on the field, getting potential negates, disruptions up, or the little guy and getting a search, so you already get to add off that as well. And then the second effect is kind of specific. Your opponent has to be playing a synchro-based deck, so that's not the craziest thing. But if you could get it off and your opponent forgets about the effect, it is a quick effect. I mean, Adamantipator is a thing right now, so it's not the craziest, right? Not the craziest thing to have happen. So pretty cool card. I think this is fine. You're not playing it more than 1 or 2. It's more of a follow-up play card because I don't necessarily think this deck's engine is throwing 3 different named monsters in the graveyard, at least ones that you really want that badly. So, but I think these cards are solid, honestly. I think if you were to tell me that we were going to get 6 new Meklord cards, just Meklord cards in general, I probably would have assumed they're all going to be kind of bad, like just fun, like, oh, that's like one of the main villains from 5D's decks, like, oh, they'll probably just make them fun. The deck doesn't really do much right now. But no, they actually made like a legit engine between this guy and the spell, and the trap's pretty cool. The new boss monster is interesting, probably playable. And I think it's actually pretty good. So definitely let me know your guys' thoughts down below. I don't think Meklords are going to start running around like crazy in the meta, but I do think they're like potentially a cool, fun rogue deck at this point. I don't know. They definitely need some playing around with, and I'm definitely curious to see what they end up being able to do, because Meklord Emperor Weisel is pretty good in my opinion. But that's going to do it for me here, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on all Yu-Gi-Oh! Reveals, news, stuff like that, deck profiles from me, discussion videos, everything. Just let me know and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.